Yo guys, welcome back to another video. As you guys can tell by the title of the video and the thumbnail, we are finally doing the Black Clover review. And yeah, I know it's been a minute since I uploaded, 2 weeks. It was the end of the semester at my school, so as always I've been pretty busy, but I've been especially busy the last few weeks. But now, since the semester is changing, we actually have a 4-day weekend. So I figured now would be the perfect time to, make some content. So yeah, also, as you guys can tell by the title, I decided to break this up into 2 videos, part 1 and part 2. Part 1, which we're doing now, is going to cover from the beginning of the series all the way through the Witch's Forest arc of Black Clover, and then the second video I'm going to do will cover the Royal Knights arc all the way until, caught up. And I was thinking about maybe waiting on doing the second video because we do have the new volume coming out very soon, early February. So I thought maybe just wait until then, but I think I'll give the new volume a video of its own, possibly, and I'll come out with the second video here soon. But yeah, so Black Clover review number 1 that we're doing, arcs 1 through 6. A lot of this, because it's going to be my first review, or part 1, I'm going to be doing a lot of general review stuff, like basic, what I think of like the art and the just the vibe of the story, just overall throughout the entire series. I'm going to be doing some of that, but also some more specific plot stuff. But because this is the first video, I'm going to do like the general review stuff. And yeah, anyways guys, it's been a long time coming. Let's get right into this. Now, the first thing I do have to say about Black Clover is, not by any means is it super original. It's nothing, that we haven't seen before in shonen manga. It's very similar to Naruto. It reminds me a lot of My Hero Academia and Naruto kind of roll up into one. A lot of people refer to Black Clover as Naruto's little brother or Naruto's cousin or something. Trying to be Naruto, but I don't see it that way at all. A lot of newer shonen manga series are definitely very they drew a lot from the big 3 back in the day, and so there's a lot of similarities between newer series and stuff from the big 3. Like, another thing that I could think of is like JJK being extremely similar to Naruto in a lot of its design stuff. Like, basically their squad is just Team 7. A lot of new series draw from the big 3, and older series, a lot of those mangaka that are making these new series are big fans of the older stuff. And again, I don't really think that it necessarily has to be something super unique and off the wall, something so different from everything else, like, Chainsaw Man or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, something just so unique to itself. You can't really compare it to many other things, just because it's like its own thing. It's ridiculous in its own right. But Black Clover, I think that it can be, draw a lot of elements from other things and not be very unique, but be really fun. And I think Black Clover does that very well. It's very shonen-y, quotes, like I said, draws a lot of inspiration from Naruto, and, it's contemporary. My Hero Academia, which I'll get into sort of my ideas on the relationship between Black Clover and My Hero, which I think is pretty interesting. The very similar series, And yeah, it's nothing new by any means, but it's still insanely fun. It's an insanely fun read, and we can even see this in even more recently in series like Mashal. Though I haven't read it, I've heard some pretty good things from other people, but a lot of people are dogging on it because it's not unique, and I don't think it really needs to be. Obviously, there's something magical there when something is really unique and you read it for the first time and you're like, holy crap, this is awesome. This is like nothing I've seen before. But something about, the different tropes and whatnot, and something about like the predictability. I don't know if that's a word, but something about that, keeps you engaged and entertained because you see a type of character or a type of situation and you're like, oh, I kind of know what's going to happen here, just because, like, the vibe, something like that I think is personally, like, really entertaining. That's why, when I watch a lot of shows and anime, I'm like, oh, is this about to happen? I feel like this is about to happen because I've seen so much other stuff, older stuff that, the themes and whatnot, that it all just, the tropes. And it's hard to explain, kind of, but if you know what I'm talking about, then, but, yeah, I don't know. Black Clover, not original, but it takes a lot of inspiration and does kind of its own twist with it. And yeah, I think it's just a fun series, and it's really fast-paced, fun shonen action series, and I absolutely really freaking enjoy it. The next thing I'm going to talk about, which I sort of touched on before, is the pacing. Black Clover, I don't have a problem with the pacing at all. That being said, it is very fast-paced. They tend to jump around quite a bit, from place to place, fighting this person, now they're fighting this person. A lot happens, and very quickly, and that, to me, it's not super, it kind of is plot heavy, but I feel like they don't really need to explain a whole bunch, just because it's a pretty simple story, though once we get in, at least early on, I don't want to give too much away because, certain stuff I will be covering in the second video, but once we start to get into stuff with the elf reincarnation arc, then, it's a little bit of a different story, but at least early on, it's very fast-paced, just getting you to know the characters, understand some of the world building lightly, and just fighting this person, and just to... It's very fast-paced to begin with, just to get you to understand the vibe, what's going on, and, I quite enjoy it. I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't care about it being fast-paced. There's some series that are a little bit slower and take more time to build on stuff, but the series being fast-paced, I have no problem with. Another thing having to do with the beginning portion of the series is how much they're setting up for later on. At the beginning here, there's a lot of stuff that happens that they kind of just throw in, and I feel like they kind of want you to forget about, but then, like, when something happens later on, you're like, either you remember that or, seeing that happen. Either seeing that happen in the manga and then it being like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened, and then it pays off in the end. Something, I guess, in like the first volume, we see Asta use, when he first gets his grimoire, he uses that power, and we sort of, the 5-leaf part happens when he's fighting, I forget what that dude's name was, but he was trying to take Yuno's grimoire or whatever, and we see him fight that dude, and we see that, thing pop up, and then you're like, whoa, Asta's got this crazy power, but then they kind of forget about that until later on in the elf reincarnation arc, and, well, even before that, I think in the Royal Knights arc, when he finally starts to tap in to the true potential of his grimoire, then, you know, it brings that back up, that question back up. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. What's up with his power? And a lot of stuff, early on, we hear members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun saying, what are you doing with that grimoire that belonged to our leader? And it's like, what are you talking about? You know, Asta got his grimoire early on, you know, from the he was chosen. Like, this is Asta's, not your leader's. What are you talking about? And then, of course, we don't understand it. And then later on, in like the second half of the story, we're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And also stuff with like the giant demon skull thing, you know, in Hajj Village, that thing. I'm trying to think of some other examples, but yeah, a bunch of crazy stuff that, you know, they happen. I don't know if I said it already, but Nero the bird, also the reason why the bird sticks with Asta. You know, that's kind of insane. We see that later on as well. Huge plot twist. And yeah, the series has a lot of twists and turns, and it's all set up by stuff that they threw in early on, expected you to forget about, and then blows up later on, and you're like, mind blown. The next thing I am going to talk about is sort of two things, two in one. And first thing being that I absolutely love the art style in this manga. I love the character designs there. I mean, you can definitely tell by looking at it that it's definitely a shonen battle series. It looks similar to, I don't really know what it looks similar to. Has a very poppy look to it. I don't really know how to explain it, but you know, just by looking at it, you can tell that, you know, it's a shonen series. Yeah, really cool character designs, just like the clothes that they wear, because it's definitely like a medieval looking sort of fantasy magic series, you know. So the clothes and stuff, it's really cool. You know, I can really, when I try and create characters for my own story that I've been working on for a long time, you know, I like to draw my characters that I create in my head sometimes, and it can be difficult to come up with like different clothes and stuff, because I don't know, especially for female characters, I feel like it's really hard to do like fantasy sort of clothes. And I think that Black Clover is something that they do pretty well for the characters. You know, their outfits and whatnot, they all look pretty unique to that character, which can be pretty hard to do, considering, you know, I've tried. Yeah, and the characters themselves, you know, there's a wide cast of characters, which if you guys have been on this channel for a while, you know that I love, you know, a wide cast of unique characters. So yeah, Black Clover definitely has that, and they all look really awesome. And with that, I said it, you know, it was kind of two things in one. The physical release of the series is absolutely awesome. I love the covers, like every few months when a new volume comes out. I love looking at the covers. The new volume, volume 28, has one of the sexiest Black Clover covers I have ever, and probably, I think personally, the best cover that we've had yet in the entire series. Absolutely love the way it looks. I might throw a picture up on screen, but you know, early on, one of my favorite covers, and it's still up there too, is volume 6 with Yami on it. A great volume cover. And yeah, the physical release, awesome. Viz, as always, usually does an amazing job printing, unlike Low Donsha. Yeah, you know, they don't have a whole lot of quality control issues. You know, good quality manga. One thing that I did really enjoy, you know, I'll go grab some volumes. One thing that I did really enjoy, I grabbed the volumes so I can show you guys, is early on what they would do is on the spines of the volumes, they would, you know, they're all black, which I do really like. I like the black volumes. But what's cool is they have the character on there, it's kind of hard to show because of the glare. But then they'd have a little pop of color for the number, and then the clover right here would be the same color as the number. And so yeah, it added a bit of uniqueness to the volume while being all black. It just looks very clean on the shelf, but sadly, in a bit of an inconsistency, I'll try not to show this volume because we're not there yet, but starting with volume 20, what they would do is they would not color in the clover. If you look at volumes 20 through, I guess up to date, so 27 or 28. 28 technically isn't out yet, but a lot of people have it early. But if you look at those volumes, the clover is just white, and they stopped doing the colored in clover, which I think is a shame because it was just an element that I really enjoyed. It was very small detail, but I thought it looked awesome on the shelves. And now, I don't have too big of a problem with it. It's a minor gripe I have, but now if you're really looking and really, sometimes my OCD gets me, but I'll look at my shelf and then you just see the colorful clovers just stop, and now they're all white. It's kind of whack, and I don't know why they stopped doing it, but yeah. Anyway, overall though, love the covers of Black Clover. I guess since I have them here, I'll show you. Here's volume 10 right here. Absolutely beautiful cover. We got Vanessa right there looking bad as ever. Asta right there, because he has his sword in his mouth for a certain reason that I might get into here in a few, but obviously he's not using his hands. And then we got Fauna on the fire dragon spirit shooting a fireball, and then in the back there, you got the witch queen just chilling. So yeah, this is also one of the better volumes that they have made, as like covers. But yeah, physical volumes for Black Clover are amazing, and I recommend picking up that series even just for the covers, and on the shelves, they just look so clean. And you guys can even look in the background, right here. Yeah, they just look amazing. One thing that I did really want to talk about was similarities and kind of my thoughts on Black Clover and then My Hero Academia, and kind of why Black Clover hasn't really been talked about much until recently. So Black Clover, if you guys don't know, came out around the same time as My Hero Academia. I think 2015, 2014, 2015, sometime around there. I actually remember scrolling through Hulu when I was little. I say when I was little, but a few years ago, and seeing Black Clover on there, when it first got its anime adaptation, and then thought about watching it but never did. Yeah. Anyway, I remember Black Clover from back then, but never actually got into it until recently. I think Black Clover has always been good. A lot of people, Black Clover's been popping off, blowing up as of recently, but I think part of the reason why that is that nobody really got into it until now, or at least not many people, is because its contemporary, My Hero Academia, blew up and exploded in popularity here in the US. Became one of, I think, probably, don't quote me on this, but one of the best-selling manga of all time. Could be wrong on that, probably wrong on that, but regardless of what you think about the community, it's cringe and terrible, but it has a bunch of diehard fans, and it's a massive community, and ridiculously popular. And I think the success of My Hero Academia sort of overshadowed Black Clover. And then now, My Hero Academia is also kind of popping off in the manga right now. Some crazy stuff is happening, which I can't wait to read. But Black Clover, now that more crazy stuff is starting to happen again, it's back. It's a little in the limelight, you know. And a lot of people are deciding, oh wait, Black Clover, I remember that series. It's getting kind of crazy. Maybe I should get into it. And then they get into it and they're like, oh, this series is actually kind of freaking good. And then, you know, now they're a Black Clover fan. But I think part of the reason why Black Clover was kind of looked over for a while was because a series at the same time, My Hero Academia, its biggest competitor, two very similar series. That's why I like, on my shelf, I like to keep Black Clover and My Hero right next to each other all the time. Because, I don't know, when I think of one, I think of the other, you know. Yeah, its biggest competitor at the time just blew up, and just, you know, Black Clover who? You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's personally my theory on why Black Clover didn't blow up until recently. Now, I'm gonna get into more of the plot stuff, talking about the first half or so of Black Clover. Now, when I'm gonna hop into it and talk about it, I'm not gonna cover stuff that I had already covered in previous Black Clover videos on the channel, because if you guys don't know, I had tried covering Black Clover and figured this just isn't going to work the way I was doing it, and I didn't like that kind of content that I was putting out, so that's why I'm doing this format instead. But yeah, you guys can go back and watch those videos, because I covered the first few arcs of Black Clover, I think, through the Royal Capital Assault arc. So I picked up on my own reading Black Clover, like, without covering it for a while. I picked it up around the Seabed Temple Arc, and then read all the way through before making another video on it. So if you guys want to see all that stuff from the Royal Capital Assault arc and like before, and hear my thoughts about that, you guys can go check out those videos. If I remember, I'll leave a link in the description, but if I don't, then, you know, they're somewhat recent, so you guys can go check those out on the channel. But yeah, so starting off talking about the Seabed Temple Arc, this isn't the first time we've seen the Eye of the Midnight Sun, though it's the first time we see a member of the Third Eye in action, being Veto the, not Hateful, Veto the Despair, which is a great fight. I loved seeing the combination of attacks and stuff, the teamwork between Asta, Vanessa, and Finral. They came up with an awesome strategy to fight Veto. You know, Vanessa using her strings to kind of manipulate Asta like a marionette, while like flinging him through portals and stuff that Finral created. Absolutely love that fight. And then, of course, finally Yami shows up. He ends up, sorry about that, he ends up finishing off Veto and in that fight. So Seabed Temple Arc, I think, is one of the first moments where we get like a really big boss. You know, obviously there's a lot of mystery surrounding Licht still, but the Third Eye, even Licht said, was more powerful than he is, and we see that fight with Veto, and, you know, one of the first more like really high stakes fights against a villain that doesn't feel like a little henchman, you know, like the first fight against a bad guy that feels like a boss, you know. So really liked that fight. And then after that, I just looked at the volumes behind me to see exactly where we're at after the Seabed Temple Arc. We have the Diamond Kingdom again that are trying to invade, and so we see Mars again. And Mars, though, it gets, you know, he was a villain to begin with, but then he actually becomes a good guy, which I liked. I think Mars was a pretty cool character, especially given some character development. I hope we do see him again soon, because I thought he was a pretty solid character. And we get some more information about his backstory, but also Fauna, and it all ties in together at the near, I guess, in the Elf Reincarnation arc, which this is the best arc so far, I think. Yeah, we'll have to wait until the Spade Kingdom arc finishes, but the Elf Reincarnation arc was insane. That's where most of the big stuff has happened so far. But yeah, Fauna, some stuff happens with her later on we see, and it kind of makes sense. But anyway, Fauna the Hateful with her fire dragon, which I showed you guys that cover. Absolutely awesome. Asta gets cursed, and then he loses his arms, or not loses his arms, but he's not able to use his arms anymore. And then so they go to this witch village to try and find a cure for this ancient curse to undo it, so then he can, finally use his arms again in battle. And then they fight the witch queen later on. With she uses blood magic, which I thought was really dope. Kind of reminds me of Power from Chainsaw Man, or even Bloodbenders and Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think the idea of blood magic, it sounds so metal. It's awesome. But yeah, the Witch Queen, they fight her. And then Vanessa gets a new ability with the red string of fate, which is another thing that I really enjoyed. As somebody who's a big fan of Norse mythology, the whole red string of fate, that's a big thing. What was it? The Last Kingdom, if you guys know that series. I've mentioned it here and there before. Great book series by Bernard Cornwell, also a Netflix adaptation, which, I guess originally it was a BBC show, but it was added to Netflix, and now they call it a Netflix original, even though it's really not. Anyway, there's a whole thing, fate is inexorable, which is a famous quote from the book series, and the main character, Uhtred, is always talking about, the red string of fate. And I like how they tied it into Black Clover. Yeah, I just like that whole idea. And it's mentioned in another series that I really like, so I was able to make that connection. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that. But then, going back to, Fauna and stuff, she regains her memories. They, snap her out of it because the Fauna, though she was believed to be dead, was brought back to life and brainwashed. And so Mars got his childhood girlfriend back, and then, he became a good guy again, I guess. So that whole fight, though, I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, and then Vanessa gets released, and then Asta gets his arms back, and then we're all clear. That whole arc, the Witch Forest arc, I thought was pretty cool, because it ties in with the, not only do they go to the Witch's Forest, but then they also have the Diamond Kingdom attacking again, and it kind of ties it all together. So the Diamond Kingdom attacks, they go to the Witch Forest, and then the Third Eye attacks. Well, not the Third Eye, but Fauna of the Third Eye, so the Eye of the Midnight Sun attacks. There's just a whole lot going on in that arc, and I thought it was pretty solid arc, because it gives Mars more backstory, and yeah, again, with Fauna, sets more stuff up for later on. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be about it for the video, though. I know I didn't talk too much about the plot of the first half of Black Clover. I talked lightly about Seabed Temple Arc, and then into the Witch's Forest arc. But I would have talked more. I just didn't want to reiterate what I had already made 2 or 3 videos about. I just didn't want to do all that. So yeah, most of this video was made up for, though, by talking about the series. Again, more of the general review of stuff that has to do with the series as a whole. Talking about that. But in the next video, the second part of this video, I'm going to talk about the Royal Knights, and then the Elf Reincarnation arc, and then get into some of the Spade Kingdom stuff. And we got some heavy stuff to talk about with the plot and in the second part. So yeah, be prepared for that, because Black Clover at first, starts off pretty simple, fighting bad guys, but ooh, that Elf Reincarnation arc, man, once Asta pulls up and he first taps into that power, and then does something similar, and then we have stuff with Licht and his backstory, and the whole backstory of the kingdom itself and the Wizard King, and oh man, there's just a lot to get through, yeah. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of Black Clover in the comments. I would like to hear what you guys think. And yeah, that's been another video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.